welcome you. So thanks for sending over those really interesting articles about effort in learning.
They're fascinating, aren't they? Changes how you think about it.
Totally, because at first glance, effort seems simple. Like you just try harder, you learn more. Simple as that.
Right. But these sources, they really dig in and show it's much more complex.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To unpack what effortful learning really means, according to these researchers.
And why figuring that out actually matters for how you approach learning yourself.
Yeah. Because the big idea right off the bat seems to be that just saying effort equals good learning
Mhm.
isn't quite right. It's more nuanced.
Definitely. Researchers are looking at it from kind of two angles. There's the cognitive side, like how much brain power a task needs.
Okay, the processing load.
And then there's the motivational side, what actually makes us want to put in that effort. And crucially, those two aren't always lined up.
Interesting. So you can have one without the other, potentially.
Pretty much. And the sources give us a really useful framework, a three-part way to think about effort. It helps break it down.
3 parts. Okay, I like frameworks. What are they?
They call them effort by complexity, effort by need frustration, and effort by allocation.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Effort by complexity. What's the deal with that one? It sounds cognitive.
It is. It's basically about the inherent difficulty of the task itself, the objective load.
Okay, so like physical effort. Lifting a heavier weight just is more work, objectively speaking.
That's a perfect analogy, actually. The sources even link it to work in physics. It's the object-level processing needed.
Right. So solving a math problem with, say, 3 variables takes more processing than one with 2.
Exactly. And this is a core idea in cognitive load theory, which we've talked about before.
We have. That's about the load on our working memory, right? So effort by complexity fits right in there.
It does. High effort by complexity can come from the material just being genuinely complex, that's intrinsic load, or
Or it could be badly designed, like confusing instructions adding extra mental steps, extraneous load.
precisely. That adds to the complexity effort. But what's really interesting is this idea of desirable difficulties they bring up.
Desirable difficulties. Sounds like a contradiction, but I think I know what you mean. Like retrieval practice.
Exactly. Things like trying to recall information or
Yeah.
mixing up different types of practice, interleaved practice.
Yeah, those feel harder in the moment. They require more cognitive effort, more complexity effort.
Right, higher effort by complexity. But the research suggests that very effort can lead to better, more durable learning in the long run.
Okay, so sometimes that higher complexity effort is actually good for learning, but not always.
That's the key nuance. High effort by complexity isn't always a sign of good learning happening. It could just mean you don't have the background knowledge yet.
Ah, right. If I jump into advanced calculus without knowing algebra, it's going to feel incredibly effortful, complex, but I won't actually be learning calculus effectively.
Exactly, you're just overloaded.
Yeah.
So just because something feels hard doesn't automatically mean deep learning is occurring. It's context dependent.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's effort by complexity. What was the second one? Effort by need frustration. That sounds less cognitive, more, ugh.
Yeah, it's definitely got an emotional flavor. Effort by need frustration is about how strenuous or uh, aversive the learner actually experiences the task.
Aversive, like you actively dislike doing it.
Yeah. Think about feeling exhausted or annoyed or stressed out when you're doing homework or trying to study something, that feeling of strain.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. That feeling where you just want to throw the book across the room.
That's it. So it's not just the objective difficulty like complexity, but your subjective emotional reaction to the difficulty or the task environment.
So it's tied to our feelings, our affect.
Exactly. Effective emotional processing requirements.
Yeah.
It still comes from the task situation, but it's a different kind of load. And here's the kicker. This type of effort, this need frustration, it isn't actually required for learning. In fact, it can seriously get in the way.
Really? Not required. How does it hinder learning?
Well, the sources link this strongly to self-determination theory. Remember that one? About basic psychological needs.
Vaguely. Competence, autonomy, relatedness. Those 3.
Spot on. Competence, feeling capable. Autonomy, feeling you have some choice or control. And relatedness, feeling connected and supported.
Okay.
So if a learning situation frustrates those needs, maybe the task is way too hard, crushing your sense of competence.
Or way too easy, making you feel incompetent or bored.
Right. Or maybe you have zero choice in how you learn it, undermining autonomy.
Or you feel totally alone. Maybe the teacher seems uncaring. that hits relatedness.
Exactly. When those needs are thwarted, you get this negative aversive feeling. That's effort by need frustration, and it tanks your motivation.
Yeah, I can see that. If I feel stupid, forced, and alone doing something, I'm probably not going to be very motivated to keep going. It feels like pushing uphill.
Precisely. It
Yeah.
becomes a barrier. So while effort by complexity might be unavoidable sometimes, maybe even desirable, high effort by need frustration is usually a sign something's wrong with the task design or the environment.
It's like counterproductive effort.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It actively works against learning.
Okay. Complexity, need, frustration. What was the third one again?
Effort by allocation.
Allocation. Okay, what's that about? Allocating resources.
Kind of. It's
Yep.
about the learner's motivation, basically. It refers to the initiation, the intensity, and the persistence of your learning behavior, how much effort you choose to allocate.
So this is about my willingness to engage, not just how hard the task is or how bad it feels, but whether I actually decide to try and how hard I try and for how long.
Exactly. It's driven by your goals, your momentary motivation. Are you actually investing your cognitive resources?
This sounds like where motivation theories really come into play.
Absolutely. The source is connected heavily to situated expectancy value theory.
Expectancy. Value. Okay, sounds like what it says on the tin.
Pretty much. Your motivation to allocate effort depends on two big things.
Yeah.
First, your expectancy beliefs. Do you think you can actually succeed at this task?
Right, your confidence level.
And second, your value beliefs. How important or meaningful or useful do you find this task? Do you actually care about succeeding?
Makes total sense. If I think there's no way I can do this, or who cares about this anyway?
Then your effort by allocation is likely going to be pretty low. Even if the task isn't objectively that complex or frustrating, your willingness just isn't there.
Got it. And can we sort of measure these beliefs?
Yeah. Well, the sources suggest you can ask specific questions. For expectancy, like how confident are you that you can figure this out?
Okay.
And for value, how important is it for you to do well on this? Or how interesting do you find this topic?
So it brings it down to the specific task and my feelings about it, not just general motivation. That's helpful. You mentioned costs, too. Motivational costs.
Yeah, that's part of the expectancy value theory, too. When deciding whether to allocate effort, we weigh the perceived costs. Well, there's the effort cost itself. Yeah. Just how much work do I think this is going to be?
Okay, the perceived difficulty.
Then opportunity cost. What else could I be doing right now that I value more? Like hanging out with friends instead of studying.
The FOMO cost. Fear of missing out.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are emotional costs, like am I going to feel anxious doing this? Am I afraid of failing?
Those are very real considerations, that internal debate before you start something.
Totally. And that anecdote in the sources about the student who hated homework.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. They refused to do it, but then...
But then when it was reframed as a game, they did it willingly, right?
Yeah. The actual homework, the task complexity, was identical.
But the context shifted. Maybe it felt more autonomous, less like a chore. Maybe the game framing made it seem more achievable, boosting competence expectancy. Whatever it was, their effort by allocation shot up.
That's a fantastic illustration. Same task, totally different motivation, totally different effort allocated. Wow.
It really highlights how powerful that allocation piece is.
Okay, so we've got these three distinct types. Complexity, need, frustration, allocation. But, I mean, they must interact, right? They don't just exist in separate boxes.
Oh, absolutely not. They're definitely intertwined. As you'd expect, a really complex task, high effort by complexity.
Is probably more likely to feel frustrating, right? Leading to high effort by need, frustration.
It can be, sure, but the sources are careful to say it's not automatic. You can have a complex task that doesn't feel overly frustrating if the environment is supportive or if you feel competent tackling it.
Okay, so they can be linked, but don't have to be.
Right. And the goal of good instructional design, you could argue, is often to manage that, to keep need frustration low and encourage effort by allocation, even when the necessary complexity is high.
And I guess the interaction can go the other way, too. Like, if I keep having really frustrating experiences with math, where my needs for competence are constantly thwarted, I'll probably start believing I can't do math, low expectancy, and maybe decide it's stupid anyway, low value.
Exactly. That leads to lower effort by allocation in the future. Repeated frustration poisons the well for motivation. It creates a negative cycle.
Yeah. But you also mentioned the flip side, like mastering something challenging.
Right. Successfully tackling something complex, high effort by complexity, can feel incredibly satisfying, boosting competence and value. which then fuels more effort by allocation. It's not always negative.
That feeling of accomplishment. Yeah. Okay, this really makes me think about that old saying, no pain, no gain. What's the verdict from these sources on that? Does learning have to be painful?
They push back on that pretty strongly, actually.
Oh, good.
While they agree that cognitive processing, that effort by complexity, is necessary, you have to engage your brain.
You can't learn without thinking.
Right. But they argue that learning absolutely does not have to involve high effort by need frustration. It doesn't have to be painful or aversive to be effective.
That's a relief. Because it sometimes feels like we're told, if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right.
And that's the misconception they're tackling. Think about things like intrinsic motivation, getting into a state of flow, genuine interest, or even just having a high need for cognition, like thinking hard.
Yeah, flow. When you're totally absorbed, time disappears, but you might be working on something really difficult.
Exactly. In those states, you can have very high cognitive engagement, high effort by complexity, but experience very little or even zero effort by need frustration. It can even be enjoyable.
So the pain part isn't the effective ingredient. It might even be getting in the way.
That's precisely the argument. Effort by need frustration is like an unnecessary burden. It's like extraneous cognitive load, but on an emotional motivational level. It hinders rather than helps.
Okay, that clarifies a lot. So thinking about cognitive load theory again, which focuses so much on managing complexity, what does this perspective add? Does it change CLT?
It adds a crucial layer. The sources point out that historically, CLT focused almost entirely on effort by complexity. Motivation was often sort of assumed or ignored.
All right, it was about optimizing the information presentation, assuming the learner was trying to learn it.
Pretty much. But even early CLT researchers kind of knew motivation mattered, even if it wasn't central to the theory. Take the worked example effect.
Right, studying solved problems is often better for novices than just struggling through practice problems. Reduces cognitive load.
Yes, but the researchers acknowledge that if students aren't motivated, if their effort by allocation is low, they might just passively skim the worked examples without engaging mentally.
So the cognitive benefit depends on the motivational willingness to actually process it.
Exactly. The instructional design can be cognitively optimal, but if the learner isn't allocating effort, it won't work as intended. So many CLT interventions designed to increase germane load, the good kind of cognitive effort related to schema building, implicitly rely on the learner being motivated enough to engage in that effort.
That makes sense. You can lead a horse to water.
But you can't make it think. And another point the sources raise is about lab studies. A lot of instructional design research uses, let's be honest, fairly boring, low-stakes content. Learning about fire extinguishers or, I don't know, car brakes.
Yeah, not exactly intrinsically motivating for most university student participants.
Right. So participants' effort by allocation might be artificially low or driven purely by wanting to finish the experiment. That makes it hard to know if findings about the best way to present information, from a complexity standpoint, will hold up in a real classroom, where students might care a lot more or a lot less about the topic.
So the results might not generalize well if motivation levels are drastically different in the real world.
It's a potential issue. And studies done in more realistic settings often don't specifically measure or account for the student's motivation, their effort by allocation. So you don't always know how motivation is interacting with the instructional design.
So measuring these things separately is important, but sounds tricky. How do we actually do that?
It is a major challenge, and the sources highlight that. We need measures that can reliably tell the difference, especially between effort by complexity and effort by need frustration. They can feel similar subjectively sometimes.
Like, this feels really hard. Is it hard because it's complex or hard because I'm stressed and frustrated?
Exactly. So they suggest using measures we already have for things like need satisfaction from self-determination theory, asking students how competent, autonomous, and related they feel.
Okay, get at the need frustration component.
Yeah, and combine that with measures of affect, general mood, anxiety, enjoyment. And then also use the more standard cognitive load measures, like asking, how much mental effort did this task require? Or maybe even performance on a secondary task.
So triangulate. Get multiple perspectives on the experience.
That's the idea. Get a more holistic picture. They even mention physiological measures like heart rate or skin conductance, which can sometimes give clues about emotional arousal and stress, linking back to that need frustration or maybe even allocation.
A multifaceted approach. Makes sense.
And ultimately, the goal for research should be to build models that show how all three types of effort interact and influence learning over time.
It really sounds like we need to bring these cognitive and motivational perspectives much closer together when we think about learning design.
Totally. And the sources talk about how this integration can work both ways. For instance, good CLT practices like using worked examples or scaffolding complex tasks.
Which aim to reduce unproductive cognitive load.
Right. They can also have positive motivational effects. By making the task feel more manageable, they can boost feelings of competence, which reduces need frustration and might increase effort by allocation.
Ah, so fixing the cognitive load can indirectly help the motivation side.
Potentially, yes. And think about interventions that give students metacognitive information, telling them why a certain learning strategy is effective.
Like explaining the benefits of retrieval practice.
Yeah, that primarily targets their expectancy beliefs. Oh, if I do this, I'm more likely to succeed.
But that only works if I actually care about succeeding in that task, right? Back to the value belief.
Exactly. Just knowing a strategy works isn't enough if the outcome isn't valued. You might still not allocate the effort.
So we need strategies from motivation theory, too.
Definitely. Strategies aimed at increasing the value students perceive. Maybe making the learning more personally relevant,
Yeah.
utility value, or connecting it to their identity or goals, attainment value, or just making it more interesting or fun, intrinsic value.
And it all comes back to supporting those basic needs, too, right? Reducing that frustration.
Absolutely critical. Creating environments where learners feel competent, have some sense of autonomy, and feel connected and supported. That's foundational for fostering the kind of intrinsic or autonomous motivation that leads to sustained effort by allocation.
Which implies that overly controlling environments, even if well-structured cognitively, could backfire motivationally.
Precisely. Too much control can crush autonomy, leading to need frustration and reduced willingness to engage. It's a balancing act.
This also makes me question, what does self-regulated learning even mean if the learner's effort by allocation is really low, or if it's only driven by external pressure or avoiding punishment?
That's a deep question the sources raise. If the motivation isn't autonomous, is the regulation truly self-regulated in a meaningful way? Are they just going through the motions?
Yeah. And it also makes you think about responsibility. If a student is struggling because the environment is creating tons of need frustration, making them feel incompetent and helpless,
Leading to low effort by allocation.
is it fair to just say they need to regulate themselves better or they need more grit?
It definitely complicates that narrative. It suggests the environment plays a huge role in enabling or disabling that effective effort and regulation. It's not solely on the student to overcome poorly designed or demotivating conditions.
Wow. Okay. It really paints a picture of learning as this dynamic interplay between the task, the environment, and the learner's internal state, their needs, beliefs, and choices.
That's a perfect summary. It's a partnership.
So wrapping this up, the main point for you, the listener, is that thinking about effort in learning requires a bit more, well, effort. It's not just one thing.
Right. Effective learning isn't just about how hard you perceive the work to be, that effort by allocation, nor is it just about how objectively difficult the material is, the effort by complexity.
It's also crucially about your experience doing the learning, that effort by need frustration piece, and the underlying motivation that drives you to allocate effort in the first place.
Exactly. And thinking about this might give you a new lens for your own learning.
How so?
Well, maybe reflect on the tasks you find effortful. Which type of effort feels most dominant? Is something difficult because it's complex, and maybe that's okay, even desirable?
Or does it feel difficult mostly because it's frustrating you, making you feel incompetent or controlled? That negative emotional effort.
Right. Or are you just not allocating effort because you don't see the point, or don't believe you can do it, even if it's not that complex or frustrating?
Recognizing which type of effort is the main bottleneck, that could really change things.
It could. It might suggest different strategies. Maybe you need to build foundational knowledge, tackling complexity, or perhaps change how or where you're learning to reduce frustration, addressing needs, or maybe find ways to connect the material to your goals to boost value, increasing allocation.
Fascinating. It's about finding the right kind of effort, not just maximizing effort across the board, and maybe making the whole process more effective and, dare I say, maybe even less painful.
Possibly even enjoyable. It's definitely food for thought. How can you shift the balance of effort in your own learning?
Something for all of us to consider. This has been incredibly illuminating. Thanks for breaking it down.
My pleasure. Always good to dive deep.
Until next time.